Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to welcome you to the Lower Cost, Better Care bus tour here in Norfolk, Virginia. My name is Katie Baker, and I am the Virginia State Director for Protect Our Care. We're excited to be joined today by Congressman Scott, and I want to thank him and everyone who agreed to participate in this event on pretty short notice. We had to reroute our Florida stops, so we were excited we were able to add Norfolk to our tour, but we are also thinking of our friends today in Florida. I also want to recognize Delegate Bonita Anthony, who has joined us today. She is a powerful champion of both healthcare and of labor. And I want to extend a special thanks to the Teamsters, especially Nick Jones, who always tells me yes. And I also see Thomas here from AFT. And I just really want to thank labor for the monumental role that you play in fighting for good health benefits for our workers. Now a little bit about the bus. Traveling 12,000 miles across more than 16 states, Protect Our Care's Care Force One is crisscrossing the nation with one message. Lower costs are here, and we are not going back. So today we're going to celebrate the new healthcare savings from the Inflation Reduction Act, continue to celebrate the Affordable Care Act, and to discuss other steps that the Biden-Harris administration and Democrats in Congress, like Congressman Scott, are taking to lower healthcare costs for Virginians. But we're at a crossroads right now. As the Biden-Harris administration continues to improve access to quality and affordable healthcare, Republicans, like Congresswoman Jen Kiggans, want to raise costs on working families. Through their radical Project 2025 agenda, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans pose an existential threat to American healthcare. We're going to talk a lot about Donald Trump today, but I did just want to share a couple notes on Congresswoman Kiggans. And I know she's at a debate right now, so I hope she answers some of the questions we have for her. She has refused to answer whether she would vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which protects Virginians with pre-existing conditions from being denied affordable health care. She has stated her opposition on Twitter to the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed before she came in, which is lowering insulin and prescription drug costs for senior on Medicare and lowering the cost of healthcare for people who purchase their insurance on the exchange due to the extension of those premium tax credits. She voted to cut funding for the Department of Veterans Affairs, which would have drastically reduced the VA's ability to provide veterans with care and the benefits that they have earned. And she has also refused to state, and this was just in the Virginian Pilot a few weeks ago, she did not directly answer whether she would vote for the Federal Right to Contraception Act. So we hope maybe at the debate today she addresses those questions, but I'll just close out my opening remarks by saying we've come a long way and we cannot go back. The progress under the Biden-Harris administration has been monumental, but it must be protected. And with that, I'll introduce a tremendous healthcare champion, Congressman Bobby Scott. Congressman.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be here with Delegate Bonita Anthony and others and the Protect Our Care's Lower Cost, Better Care bus tour. I want to thank you for reminding everybody of the importance of health care and for everyone about the benefits of the ACA. Thanks to the Affordable Care Act, insurance companies can no longer discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. People can get cancer screenings and other preventive care with no copays and deductibles. Young people can stay on their parents' policies until they're 26. And states like Virginia have been able to expand Medicaid. After Virginia expanded Medicaid, more than 400,000, hundreds of thousands of people were eligible for insurance, and the result of the ACA was that nationally the lowest percentage of Americans do not have health insurance in the history of the United States. More percentage-wise, Americans have health insurance than ever. Now, I think it's important to remind everyone that we accomplished that without a single Republican vote on the ACA on final passage, and we made it better with the Biden-Harris American Rescue Plan Act, where we reduced premiums and expanded the number of people covered. Again, without a single Republican vote. And we passed the Biden-Harris Inflation Reduction Act. That landmark legislation is the single largest investment to address climate change in history. We recently noticed the need for that legislation when Florida was hit with two major storms in 2 weeks. But the law also lowered the cost of health care and prescriptive drugs for millions of families. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, seniors are saving money on their insulin, which is capped at $35 a month. Medicare is empowered to negotiate for lower drug prices, and beginning in 2025, total out-of-pocket costs for seniors on Medicare would be capped at $2,000 a year. Now, copays on some cancer drugs, expensive cancer drugs, can cost $2,000 a month. This will be capped at $2,000 a year. And we tried to expand these benefits to all Americans, not just those on Medicare, but Republicans in the Senate blocked that effort. The Inflation Reduction Act also extended the ACA premium credits, and families are saving approximately $400 a month because we extended those credits that came in the American Rescue Plan Act. And as a top Democrat on the Committee on Education and Workforce, I'm particularly pleased that the IRA secured new stable funding for the Black Lung Disability Trust Fund Act. That secures future benefits in health care for minors in Southwest Virginia and across the whole country who are suffering from black lung disease. Unfortunately, all of this great progress is now at risk because Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and the authors of Project 2025 have already told us what they're going to do. Project 2025, blueprint for a second Trump term, would repeal the work of the Inflation Reduction Act, which lowered health care costs and drug costs. It also includes radical proposals like ending access to free emergency contraceptives and kicking Planned Parenthood off Medicaid program. And when Trump says he has a concept to improve health care, they hope we will forget the fact that he had an actual plan when he was president of the United States. And unfortunately for President Trump and the Republicans, the Congressional Budget Office actually evaluated that plan. They found that if that plan became law, costs would go up 20% the first year. 20-some million fewer Americans would have health insurance. If you have a pre-existing condition, you start losing your protections, and because they didn't have minimum benefits, the insurance you get is probably worse than what you already have. And they passed it in the House and celebrated. And we owe the late Senator John McCain a debt of gratitude for sticking his thumbs down in the middle of the night and killing that plan once and for all. And we want to send a message that we are not going back. We will continue to fight along everyone here to ensure that we protect and expand access to the Affordable Care Act, the American Rescue Plan Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act for many years to come, and to show the impact of the decisions we will make when we vote for president. We will hear from several Virginians who have been directly affected. So thank you very much, and we look forward to their comments.
Thank you so much, Congressman. And next, I will introduce my friend and colleague, Rena Hicks, who is the co-executive director of Freedom Virginia. Rena.
Good morning. Thank you to Protect Our Care for inviting me to join you today. And thank you, Congressman Bobby Scott, for being a national leader in the fight to make healthcare more affordable for hardworking Virginians. At Freedom Virginia, we are striving to build a commonwealth where everyone has the freedom to thrive. And that means we must continue to lower the cost of healthcare, which both the Affordable Care Act and the Inflation Reduction Act have done. Freedom Virginia is particularly focused on lowering the cost of prescription drugs. So I just want to name a few wins that the Inflation Reduction Act gave us on that front. In addition to the $35 insulin cap and the $2,000 total out-of-pocket cap, Medicare now has the ability to negotiate for lower drug prices. More than 193,000 Virginia seniors take one of the first 10 drugs that were selected for negotiation, and they're going to see those new prices take effect in 2026. The Inflation Reduction Act also requires drug companies to pay a penalty to Medicare if they raise prescription drug prices faster than inflation. That money is then returned to the seniors who are price gouged by these companies. These are great provisions, but they only apply to people who are on Medicare. We need to build on the success of the Inflation Reduction Act by passing state legislation to create a prescription drug affordability board. This board would be empowered to create upper payment limits on certain high-cost prescription drugs. The General Assembly earlier this year passed legislation to do just that, with bipartisan support. But it was vetoed by Governor Glenn Youngkin. Youngkin is one of many elected officials who want to let big pharma and big insurance companies call the shots. And as someone who lives with type 1 diabetes, I will say if there has ever been a point in my life where an insurance company had denied me access to care based on my pre-existing condition, I would not be here today. We cannot go back. We can and we must fight back against any plans to drive up the cost of healthcare. Freedom Virginia will continue to work alongside Protect Our Care and champions like Congressman Bobby Scott to help hardworking Virginians keep more of what they earn by lowering the cost of healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rena. And next, I'm introducing a Norfolk community member, Jillian Goodwin, who is going to share her story. Jillian.
Good morning. Thank you so much to Protect Our Care for having me today and allowing me to share my story. My name is Jillian Goodwin. When I was 3 months old, I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic condition primarily affecting the respiratory system. There is no cure for CF, and it is a progressive illness that gets worse as you get older. At any given time, my entire life, I have been taking 15 to 20 prescription medications a day just to maintain my health. I've been admitted to the hospital more than 35 times in my life. A lot of folks have, when it comes to politics, issues that are deal breakers for them. And for me, that is healthcare. Having access to high quality healthcare and having it be affordable is a truly life or death issue. Some of us may remember what health insurance used to be like. Insurance companies could charge more for having pre-existing conditions like cystic fibrosis, cancer, diabetes, or even just being a woman. That phrase, pre-existing condition, it's one that we are all familiar with, but if I'm being honest, it's one for me that's a little peculiar. I know that the pre is in reference to the coverage period of the insurance plan, but in my life, there is no pre. My entire existence has been one of chronic illness. Insurance companies also used to impose lifetime and annual caps on coverage, which was abolished under the Affordable Care Act. This one is huge for me. One of my prescription drugs costs $350,000 a year. It's a drug that's actually pretty revolutionary. It's only been on the market for about 5 years. With that drug, I went from being admitted to the hospital 3 to 4 times a year to twice in 5 years. It's a drug that I'm going to have to take for my entire life in order to maintain my health. So I would have easily blown through any kind of lifetime or annual cap on an insurance plan. It is not an exaggeration to say that I would not be here today without the Affordable Care Act and the life-saving reforms that were made by federal law. And Congressman Scott, thank you for your work to protect it. But Donald Trump has made it clear that he would side with pharmaceuticals and insurance companies over people like me. He has doubled down on his plans to appeal the Affordable Care Act, and as Congressman Scott said, only has concepts of a plan to replace it. His running mate, J.D. Vance, wants to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. Folks like myself, my friend Raina here, and let insurance companies charge us more for health care. Here in Virginia, legislation to establish a prescription drug affordability board was vetoed. This bipartisan proposal would have built on the Inflation Reduction Act by establishing upper payment limits for some of the most burdensome drugs in Virginia, like mine. I have one clear message for Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and their peers. I will not stop fighting. People like me deserve representation who will stand up for them, which is why I will continue to use my voice and share my story to protect the progress that we've made through the Inflation Reduction Act and the Affordable Care Act. We cannot let MAGA Republicans take our health care away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jillian, for sharing your story. And next, we're going to have Laurice Yarn of Virginia Beach share how the Inflation Reduction Act and the $2,000 total out-of-pocket cap that goes into effect next year for our seniors on Medicare, thanks to that law, will impact her. Laurice.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. As she said, my name is Laurice Yarn. I'm from Virginia Beach, and I am a retired Virginia Beach public school system. I suffer from a chronic disease, ulcerative colitis, referred to most times as UC. Treatment of this disease is expensive for me on my moderate retirement income. I am always on 2 medications for the disease. When it's in remission, the cost is more reasonable, about $264 a month. However, a flare-up means a change in one of the meds. So I continue to take one med that runs $116 a month, and I add on another med that costs anywhere from $135 to $164 a week. So that makes it pretty costly. While I'm not in remission, my bill can be $780 a month just for the UC. I have looked into finding medicine cheaper. I went online and went to different countries, and the medicine is cheaper. However, because I'm skeptical about what I get in the mail, I decided not to do it. Instead, what I do is I use the prescription discount cards, and I go on my phone and I pick up all of the prescription cards I can find, and whichever one gives me the cheapest price, that's what I go with. And that doesn't always work because the medication continues to go up every time I get a refill. So it makes it very difficult for me. But fortunately, I am able to pay for my prescription drugs. Now, I'm a senior citizen, and if you know senior citizens, they generally have more than one illness. So that means, coupled with the other things, I could be paying sometimes as much as $1,000 a month for drugs. I am extremely thankful that the Inflation Reduction Act is helping me. Without Medicare, I would not have these medications. A med cap of $3,000 is good, and the $2,000 cap is going to be even better. I look forward to that. The Inflation Reduction Act is helping me save money. Because of it, Medicare has the authority to negotiate prescription drug prices, cap out-of-pocket expense, and extend the Affordable Care Act for 2025. We need to protect this law against any attempts to take it away. Our former president and vice presidential running mate, J.D. Vance, will strip the Affordable Care Act from the people who need it most. We are all Americans, and we want the best for ourselves and for the others in our country. That is who we are. We look out for each other. Thanks, President Biden and Vice President Harris, for passing the law, and of course, our Congressman Bobby Scott, and all of the delegates and senators for being great healthcare advocates. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laurice, for sharing your story. And next, I'm introducing Laura Packard. Laura is traveling all over the country on this bus, but Laura happens to also be a Virginian. Laura.
Hello, everybody. I'm honored to be here to thank Congressman Scott because your vote for the Affordable Care Act helped save my life. 7 years ago, I walked into a doctor's office with a nagging cough and walked out with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. Thankfully, I had good insurance at the time through the Affordable Care Act that paid for the 6 months of chemotherapy and month of radiation treatments it took for me to be here in remission today. Woo, thanks. But that wasn't my only fight, because the day after my first chemotherapy appointment, MAGA Republicans, egged on by President Donald Trump, voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and then they held a party to celebrate, while I was on my couch trying not to die. We are not going back to that. We are not going back to the chaos and attacks on our healthcare every day. We need to move forward. I was here in Virginia Beach a few months ago to go to Representative Kagan's office. We were delivering hundreds of petition signatures of her constituents to her, calling on her to support and defend the Affordable Care Act. Unfortunately, she won't do that. But we are not going back. We are going forward to a day where every Virginian has the health care they need and deserve. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your story. I hope Congresswoman Kiggins could hear us today on that debate stage. I hope she gets asked that question, would you vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act? Because she has avoided answering it. And all the stories of these folks are at stake. So with that, I am going to wish our bus team safe travels. They're headed to New Mexico next. And we'll take a photo here as we end the event. And if there's any press who want to do one-on-ones, we may have time for that. Thank you.